You must be aware of my videos on object-oriented programming concepts, design, and patterns. So I was looking for a framework to develop my application. The choice of language wasn't much there because uh, I wanted to use Java because Java is fairly popular object-oriented language. So I wanted to use Java to explain all the concepts. So when it comes to Java, the most popular framework is of course Spring. Spring MVC especially is very popular for web development. So we have this Spring tool suite. Uh, it gives you a compact version of Eclipse, IDE, and all the things that you need to get started with web development, right? So I decided to go with Spring. So the thing that I observed about Spring is that there was a lot of configuration involved. So if you can see in this tutorial, basically, this is the directory structure of a normal Spring project. And so in this XML file, pom.xml, you configure your application. You can see this configuration here, right? It's lots of XML configuration, right? So the basic thing that I wanted to do with this application, tennis code booking application, was that create a user and do CRUD operations on booking. So I was looking for an ORM, that is object relational mapper, and the most obvious choice in Java is Hibernate. Hibernate should be really good for me. It would save me a lot of boilerplate code. It should give me a lot of easy to use, CRUD functionality. So when I started using Hibernate, I realized that, oh no, I still have to write the SQL. I have to still create table. Then I have to use the configuration file to specify which version of Hibernate I'm using. It doesn't stop there. I have to create my own model class. That is, suppose I'm creating a person table. I have to create a person class. And then I have to annotate that to say that my table name will also be person. I was like wondering, if Hibernate is a ORM, why do I need to specify that my person model will have a person table? I mean, isn't that obvious? Like, because you see, I come from a Rails background. And Rails is highly productive. It's purely convention over configuration. You hardly have to do any configuration in Rails to get going. So it was very strange for me to see this, like, mentioning the table name and all these annotations. And this is where I totally, like, I was like done at this point. That I had to specify the fields, and then I had to specify what will be my primary key. I have to annotate that. I have to also say that this primary key should be auto generated, like when I create a new object. So all these things I had to mention, like hard code them, like annotate them. Then what is the advantage of using ORM if I have to specify the table name, primary key name, and auto generate primary key and all those things? So I was really pissed. Then again, you have to create getters and setters for all these fields in your table. It doesn't end there. so by this time, I was pretty convinced that I'm not going to use Spring MVC and Hibernate for my development because I wanted to put emphasis on object-oriented design patterns, not on how to create a web application, right? So then I was looking for if I could find another highly productive Java-based web framework. And I stumbled upon this thing called as Grails. Obviously, from the name, you get the idea that it is Grails, so it is Rails for Java, basically. As I read into it, I understood that it is convention over configuration. So it's going to give me all those things which I'm so used to, so highly productive things such as good ORM, a good templating engine, a good job scheduler, a good everything. So the full thing is Groovy and Grails. So like Ruby on Rails, this is Groovy and Grails. But this is Java ecosystem. Groovy is a language uh, which is used in this Grails framework. Groovy is a superset of Java. That means all the entire valid Java code is valid Groovy code. So Groovy classes can talk with Java classes. Groovy classes can use your existing Java classes. And Groovy syntax is absolutely same as Java syntax. So there's no syntactical difference. But Groovy is a superset of Java. That means Groovy also gives you some extra features which you don't have in Java, such as it's a script as well as a language. That means you can write a Groovy code which is not inside a class. You can just write some Groovy code like a loop, like a function without putting inside a class. As well as you can write the Groovy classes like your normal Java classes like Java beans. So Groovy is unique in that regards because it's like a script, like a PHP or a Ruby. So all the benefits of using scripting language it gives you, but it's also a fully object-oriented programming language like a Java. So it's both. Then Groovy has closures. So closures is nothing but a block of code which is passed as an argument to another function. So basically, a function as directly as an argument to another function, which is very popular way of doing things in CoffeeScript or scripting languages, but it's there in Groovy. So all the good things about Ruby, which made it so popular for web development, are there in Groovy. Plus, it's a Java. Like all the valid Java code is valid Groovy code. So awesome. So Grails is not like a different framework than Spring MVC. No, it is not. So Grails is built on top of Spring MVC, Hibernate, SiteMesh, which is a templating engine, and Quartz, which is a job scheduling engine. So it's basically sitting on top of this fundamental Java technologies, very popular Java technologies. It is just making your job much more easier by putting a abstraction layer on top of it to to increase the productivity of programmers. It's simply like plug and play. Like you create a class called as user, it will automatically create a table in your database by the name of user. It will automatically create the primary key. It will automatically create the timestamps. All those things. It's everything that you love about Rails or frameworks such as Laravel. It's there in Grails. So it's amazing. It's just fantastic. So all this object-oriented design patterns, I'm going to demonstrate them using Java because we are going to use Java as well as Groovy both in our development, right? So let's get started with installation. So what you need to do, what you need to have is you need to have latest JDK installed. Then you need to install Groovy on your machine. If you're on Mac or Linux, then you can use Software Development Kit Manager, SDK Man, and it's pretty easy. Or you can also use Homebrew if you use Homebrew on your Mac. So here is the link. I'm going to share the link in my description. It's pretty easy. Once you install Java and Groovy, you need to install Grails, and it's again very simple. Once you are installed Groovy and Grails, we'll use an IDE. So a very popular Java integrated development environment known as IntelliJ IDEA by JetBrains. So we're going to use that. It has built-in support for Groovy and Grails both. So let's get started. Let's create our first application. I would advise for those who are just beginning with Groovy and Grails, there's this nice book called as Grails Recipes, which you can use. So go to your terminal and type grails create app, and let's say BNP, book and play. So I'll say BNP. Okay. So this will create the Grails application for you. So let's open this application in our IntelliJ IDEA IDE. So as you can see, this is the basic directory structure for my Grails application. It has, so the most important thing is this build.gradle, where you have to specify all the dependencies, all the new plugins that you're going to use in future. You have to specify them here in the dependencies. This is the JSON. Then the further important directory is this Grails app, which will host your controllers, your models inside this domain folder, and your views inside this views folder. And you can have additional business logic in this services folder, configurations inside this configuration folder where you have this YAML file, application.yaml. Here you specify your database settings, your email settings, and all those things, right? we are basically good to go now. So we can basically run our application. So all you got to do here is, because this IDE has a implicit support for Grails, press this run button and it will automatically build as well as run your Grails application. So as you can see, it is launching the application with the default port number as 8080. And this is the default home page that Grails gives us. So this is default style, right? Now, obviously we don't want to use this. We want to use our own views, right? So first thing you need to do is go back to the terminal and create a new controller. By the way, you can also go to your IDE, say view, tool windows, terminal, and do those jobs from here. So you can say Grails, command for creating controllers is Grails create controller, let's say main. So once you write that command, it will create a main controller for you. You can say here, just type a message, render welcome to BNP, right? Or you can also create a file here inside this folder called as index.gsp. GSP stands for Groovy Server Pages, right? Now let's try and run this. So basically you'll say, so just say localhost main slash, that is index, or you can also say index. So we are seeing that welcome to BNP. Let's create our own view basically. New file, let's say index.gsp, right? I'll put this code here, h1 welcome to BNP, and in my controller I'll just remove this. It will automatically pick up. As I said, it's a convention over configuration. So your index method action of your main controller will automatically look for your index.gsp file if you're not specified anything. Yeah, I think we need to recompile this. So just recompile it. Yeah, and I'll just say stop and rerun. Main index, and as you can see, we have just managed to type welcome to BNP, keeping the rest of the markup the same. Now we can change this path. We can set this page as our index page of the entire application. So for that, we need to go to URL mappings inside your controllers and set the root path as, and then we have to say controller as main and view as index. Awesome. So we have done that. Now I think as soon as you change your mappings, it should be recompiling the application by itself. I think it should happen. Yeah, it is, because we have changed the URL mappings.groovy. It is recompiling the application, which is what we want, because we want to see these changes in effect, right? So it will recompile. So let's go and check it. Let's just type ADAD and see. Now we are coming to our root, like root URL, application URL is taking us to the main controller index page, right? So that's how you change. So this is basically the file URL mappings, where this is the class where you specify your routes, your routes, basically all your controller routes, right? How to pass data between your views and your controllers. So I'll go to your main controller and define a variable. Let's say def. Let's for example take username, and then I have to pass this data to my view. So what I have to do is that there's a syntax for that. Create this kind of array, and you say user colon username. Cool. And now this user variable will be available in your view file. So let's go to that view file, that is main controllers index.gsp, and welcome to BNP, and we'll say US dollar to access that variable and curly braces and type the name of the variable, that is user. If you click that variable, it will take you to the source of that variable, right? So now that we have set the variable value, let's just go and just rerun this. I think we need to recompile that thing again. Yeah, it is recompiling. Welcome to Java. And now let's try. Hopefully it's done. Yeah, welcome to BNP B Barters. Awesome. So this is how you set variables in your controllers, which then you can access in your views. Let's now connect our application to a database. I'm going to use MySQL. And then after that, let us create the models, right? So let's do that. So the first thing that you have to do is in order to connect with MySQL, you have to go to build.gradle file, and you have to mention here your MySQL dependency. I'm using 5.1.36. Okay, so just do that, rerun the application. So it will download the necessary jar files, whatever MySQL connection jar files are required, and it will use that. So as you can see, the configuration is successful now. So it will rerun the application, and our database or application will be ready to plug in with MySQL database. Of course, for this to work, you should have MySQL database installed on your system. So this is my BNP database. Right now there are no tables in it, right? Cool. So we have connected successfully. This is my BNP database, our application with MySQL. Now it is time for us to create our first model, right? So in order to create the model, you have to go to your terminal, exit this MySQL thing, right? So we have to go to the project directory. So project directory is BNP, right? And say grails create domain class and class name. So I want to create, because I'm creating a tennis court booking application. I will need court model, right? So I want to create court model. So this is the command. But now that we are using IDE, we don't have to do this. We just can go to IntelliJ, go to our domain folder, right click and say new Grails domain class, and just type, let's say, class name, that is court. As soon as I do that, it will create a new class for me. So one thing I forgot is we need to go to our application.yml file, and we have to specify the database settings in here. So there must be some, yeah. So in development environment, I'll just specify the database settings here. So here are my settings. DB create drop, username root, password is nothing, URL, so our database name was BNP, right? Our driver name was this, whatever driver I've used, right? Rerun the application. So for these settings to take effect, we'll have to rerun the applications. So now it will not only connect to MySQL, it will also, because we have already created one model class, that is court, it should also create the the court table for us in our database. So our application has started again. So we'll just go and check. We'll just synchronize this, and we should have a table. Oh yeah, we have a court table. It has a primary key ID and it has a version, right? It is auto increment. So it has already done that for us, right? Awesome. Let's quickly create one more model. So I'll just go new domain class and I'll say payment. I'm gonna need payment also in my application. Okay. I want to have timestamps in my payment. So what I want basically is that in my payment table, I want to have two columns, which are date created and last updated, like timestamps. And so I'm going to define two properties here, date created and date last updated of type date. And I'm going to set this auto timestamp equal to true. By default, actually I don't have to set this by default. By default it is true. What does that mean is that whenever I create a new object of payment, these two columns will be assigned values of whatever the time at that time is, exact time will be stored, date and time basically, right? If I don't want that to happen, then I can say auto timestamp false. If I don't want those values to get auto assigned, then I can say false. But otherwise, you don't have to specify anything, right? So this mapping block is basically used to do some changes in your schema. For example, I want to change type of date created and last updated. So I'll say, so here I'm changing the data type of this uh, date created, also change of last updated one. If you want to make any changes in your schema of your table, you can use this mapping block and you can rename your table, you can rename your column, you can change the data type of a column, you can, if any of your column is nullable, you can remove that nullable, you can add nullable. So all those things can be done here. So all the schema changes in this mapping block, right? For example, let's say I want to change the name of this table to payment info rather than payment. So in that case, all I have to do is go here and say table, and I have to say table and give the new name as payment underscore info. Cool. So once I do that, that will change my table name from payment to payment info. Rerun the project. So the application has restarted, as you can see. So go and just synchronize this, and yeah, you can see the name of the table has changed to payment info. You can see these two date created and last updated columns added with date time as data types rather than date, because we have changed that data type, right? We need to create the most important model in our application, that is the user. But we also want to have functionality such as authentication and authorization with that user model. So let's do that: login, log out, sign up, and roles management using. So we'll create that user model in that while creating authentication system, right? So let's do that now.